Welcome to the Strong, Single and Human podcast. A real look at single parenting, how to navigate the ups and downs of life with kids on your own while keeping sane. We cover all manner of subjects from domestic violence, dealing with childhood trauma, through to fussy eaters and how to help your kids become resilient. I'm your host, Claire Martin. Welcome. This week's guest is a single mum, Louisiana native, and an award-winning actress, writer, producer, singer, and children's book author who's worked in films, television, and theatre. She has received multiple awards, including the Best Actress Award at Festival South and the Best Actress Award at the 48th Independent Short Films Festival. Kelly wrote the feature-length film Shapeless, telling of her personal struggles with an eating disorder, which premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival and internationally at the Raindance Film Festival, and is now on VOD. Kelly also produced, co-wrote and was lead actress in the movie. And she's coming on my little old podcast. It's awesome. Kelly also regularly sings with her partner, musician and singer-songwriter Will Dickerson in New Orleans and the Southern Californian area. And if she wasn't busy enough with everything else, she has authored a children's book, Zoo Krewe, about a magical journey through the New Orleans Mardi Gras, where little fans learn their ABCs with the help of some animal friends. This lady is a legend, is awesome, and is so blooming busy. And I have been trying to get her on the podcast for such a long time. Welcome, Kelly Murtagh. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you. I've been trying to get you on for such a long time, and you've been so busy doing everything that I've just spoken about in the intro. Hey, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm so thankful to be here, Claire. Like, truly, when we had our first little conversation a while back about,
oh my God,
just
way back.
I was like, I can't wait to talk to you again, and I just felt like I could chat with you all day. So I'm really excited to be here.
I know, and I've had to fit you in between movie festivals and like film festivals and writing books and singing and like all of the stuff you do, but it's great. You're here.
I'm here.
So pleased. So pleased.
And time zones. When we were trying to figure out the time zone, I was like, it was like a time warp. I was like, whoa, y'all are in the future over there.
Yeah, it is. It's like 9 a.m. in the morning here for me, and I don't know, what time is it for you?
It's 3 p.m. on October 11th.
Oh, there we go.
And you're already on October 12th, right?
I am. Happy days. Here I am.
Teach me about the future.
We don't need time travel. We just need to fly around this world. That's all it is. It's like,
Yeah.
The only thing is, I wish like we're a day ahead. So like if you're a day behind, like we could have the lottery here, but then you could get the lottery ticket numbers, and then like we could do a little deal.
Exactly. I know.
And we could win that.
There's got to be, we got to figure that out.
Don't even go there. I know, but yeah, we ain't done it right this way. But anyway, all good. Happy days. So, hey, look, sort of did a brief intro on you, but there's so much more to you. Tell us a little bit about who you are. Tell my listeners who you are and your journey, because it's been a bit of a journey, hell of a journey, really. And it sounds all glitzy and glamour, film festivals and producing a movie, but it's not been like that the whole time, has it?
No. I mean,
no.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I think it definitely comes across glitzy and glamorous on paper. And there is an aspect of that to it, but it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hustle. It's a lot of grind.
Yeah.
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 So my name's Kelly Murtagh, as you so beautifully introduced me. Thank you. I grew up in Louisiana, which is in the South in the U.S. And when growing up, I just kind of always felt like I was too much, if that makes sense. Like I was often told, you're so sensitive, you're so dramatic, like just from all around, wherever it came from. And so I kind of, and yes, I am dramatic. I am sensitive. I have a big heart. I'm an artist. I'm an actor. But I think I started to internalize that. And I started to kind of think that like something was wrong with me. I was like, okay, something must be up,
Wow.
right? Because like, I keep hearing this, like, I'm too much. I need to contain.
But that's a superpower.
Right. Yes. Now I understand that. But back when I was growing up, like that messaging wasn't really so much around. It was like, no, fit in the box. Why are you having all these emotional responses?
Well, children should be heard and not actually like children should be seen and not heard was like what I used to know
Totally.
as a kid. Was like,
yes, stay in line, be this way. And that's just not how it goes. And so I think I internalized that. I kind of started to think like something must be wrong with me. And I say all this to kind of like set up the context for Shapeless. But what it sort of manifested into is this just severe anxiety of just always trying to like, okay, figure out like, how am I supposed to respond here? How am I supposed to act here? How am I supposed to, and like always trying to like extrapolate forward. And then that sort of manifested, the best way I can describe it is like, it was almost like always trying to control myself, which then manifested into an eating disorder at age 14.
wow.
Where I was really bulimic and really, kind of would pendulum swing between restricting and binging and being bulimic. And that was a journey that really stayed with me for a really, really long time. And I feel really grateful that we can even be discussing something like this on a podcast, because back when I was growing up, it wasn't something anyone talked about. I mean, it's still not really something people talk about.
No. And did you like, and I've been in the same boat as you, right? I was probably, I don't know, I was probably a couple of years older than you. I was like 16 in my first relationship. And I can remember the first moment. I don't know if you can remember the first moment where you were like, right, that's it. I'm doing something about this. But I was out at a pub. I mean, I was 16, 17, so I should have been in a pub. But anyway, I was out at a pub with friends, and I had this guy turn around and go, and just call me fat or whatever. I can't remember what it was, but he just was quite derogatory, right, to me. And he was probably a couple of years older than me, and I was there with my friends. And I remember thinking, right, I'm so pissed off with just having this feeling of being not good enough, that I basically just went, right, that's it. I'm going to do something about that. And so it was like restrictive eating. It was laxatives, but with the bulimia and all of that stuff. And admittedly, like I sorted it out in my head myself. Wow. This is a real cathartic thing for me because I haven't really sort of spoken on the podcast about this, but I sort of sorted it out in my head for myself. And sort of by the time I got caught, as it were, by my parents, I wasn't taking the laxatives. I still had a thing about food. And I feel as though I always will have. There's good foods, there's bad foods. There's like, so I have to keep an eye on all of that stuff and be very conscious not to pass it on to my child, right? Mm-hmm. But was there a time where you went, right, that's it, and and the eating disorder started, or was it a gradual build-up?
I feel like it was more, well, thank you, one, for sharing, because I think it's super important. I think these kinds of conversations can be really healing for people who have struggled with eating disorders, to just feel not so alone and isolated, because that shame just keeps you in that spiral, Yeah.
And I must admit, I don't feel ashamed about it. It was part of growing up to me. I probably feel more frustrated by it, but but was there a time for you?
I feel like mine was more gradual, and I can't even I feel like I definitely remember the first time that I did it. I was like 14 in high school. But I think I just kept internalizing all of these things that I was like hearing, and also like, gosh, just like the programming of society around us. Yeah. That was not a period of time where it was like, thankfully now we have this messaging of like loving yourself, body positivity. It was a very different time growing up. And I don't even think I really consciously knew what I was doing. I think I started maybe with restricting and and I noticed that I lost weight and I felt like that I got like external validation from that, which that's a tricky thing because unfortunately it's still something that people comment on. I mean, I'm just saying in generalities. I'm not saying necessarily about me, but I'm saying like, that's something people just talk about in a general way about people's appearance, about diets, about food, about weight. And it can be really damaging, especially for young ones, especially for young
and
kids.
It's exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you can't, because ultimately, like the way I look at it, I was just having a conversation recently with someone who struggled with bulimia. And, we were talking about like, how people who are really in the thick of it, like how scary food can be, like how terrifying a cookie or a pizza or whatever you've deemed quote unquote unsafe or bad. And
bad food.
Right.
Bad food, good food.
Exactly. Yeah. And so you become so hyper focused about the food, but then when you pull back into a bird's eye view, it feels like it's all about the food, but it's really not, like it's about something deeper. And for me,
I agree.
Right. And the best way I can describe it, like if I had to simplify it, because it's complicated and complex and confusing, is it's control. It's that fear of not being able to control all these things in your life. And whether you know it or not, it's a subconscious way that you're controlling something. And it can be so difficult to describe to someone who's never experienced it before, because I think there is this big, big misconception out there that it's just this extreme diet gone awry when it's so not.
And it's not.
No,
it's not. So let's just take a step back a bit. So, and there are 2 eating disorders, aren't there? There are anorexia. Well, I say there are 2, right? There's probably loads of different facets, right?
Yeah.
But there are 2 very prominent ones, which is anorexia, which is the restriction side of things, and then bulimia. And bulimia is really more around the purging. So it's laxatives, it's throwing up, it's more about the binge factor, feeling guilty, purging, feeling out of control, and then grabbing and getting that control back again by purging laxatives. However, you just want to get that food out of your body because that's bad food that you've put in your body as such, and you just want to get it out because that's your out of control section. Have I described that correctly?
I think so.
Is there a different way that you would?
I think you described it really well. I think, with bulimia, there's this cyclical nature to it where it's like you try to restrict because you're not going to binge again, but then you end up binging again and then you purge. And it's almost like there's almost like a pendulum swing with control when I think about bulimia, because you're sitting there, you're always trying to control yourself. And then you're like, you can't sustain that. And that's when that binging comes in. You're like, fuck it, fine, I'm going to be out of control. I mean, and this is all subconscious. Like, this isn't like I'm sitting there like, that, it's like a subconscious energy.
And it could be something as stupid as going, I really, I'll have a biscuit or whatever. And then you just go, right, I've had 1 biscuit, so fuck it. Like, it is like what you say, right? Where you go, I've had 1 biscuit, fuck it, I'm just going to have the whole packet, or I'm going to just eat as much as I can until I feel sick.
Right.
Because of that.
There's almost like a switch where, and there's not, and it's kind of hard to like quantify. Like, I don't think there's like a quantification that you can really definitely not put on everyone. It's all probably different for everyone.
No,
but I remember
we're all individuals, aren't we?
Right. Yeah. But I remember when I was really struggling, there would always be this it would almost be like there was 1 bite too many. You know what I mean? It's like, you did it. There you go. You were too out of control. Now you're just going to be all out of control. And then you binge and then you purge. And that moment after, like, you do get this sense of relief, which like people wouldn't do it, right? If there wasn't some sort of slight, very, very brief relief. And then the shame creeps back in and the guilt. And especially when I was really struggling with it, I really felt alone. I really felt like I couldn't talk about it. I felt so ashamed. I felt like something was so deeply wrong with me. And I think, unfortunately, that belief perpetuated it because I kept believing something's wrong with me. And I almost like kept manifesting this thing to be wrong with me because you get stuck in that cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. And and it is a bit like that. I mean, it probably, like I say, it probably only lasted. Look, the purging for me, the pendulum swinging, only probably continued for about 2 years for me, and then I sort of got out of it and went, I just can't do this anymore.
How
this
did
is
you
not
get out? Like, how did you help yourself?
Wow. I don't know. It
Wow.
was so long ago. But I don't. But also, it was quite funny. And I've had this conversation with my mum, and I know my mum listens to these podcasts, so she's it's not going to be a surprise. But it's almost like I just got myself out of it, of the binging, right? Of the binging, and I just went, right, I can't continue like this. Something has to change, but. Even now, and I'm 51, right? Even now, I still have good foods and bad foods, right? Foods that I go, oh, I really shouldn't be eating that, or I should be. And at this age, I'm now re-educating myself regarding, well, what I should be doing to make myself healthier, because I'm now getting to an age where I'm old, so things are starting to fall apart. So things like, I don't know, thyroid isn't really functioning 100% and various different things like that. So I'm going, oh, hang on a minute then. I need to be taking things. So I'm vegan as well, right? Most of the time, right? Most of the time. My son embarrasses me in a lot of places where I eat, where I'll order meat. And then he goes, but Mum, you're vegetarian. And I'm like, oh my God, right? So like 95% of the time I eat a vegan diet. And then like if I go somewhere where I can't, well, that's okay. I just eat meat. It's not like too much of an issue. And there are some meat dishes that I really do miss. So, you know, it's all right. But I am vegan mainly because of health reasons, but there are different factors that I go, and I don't know what you would call that if you're vegan most of the time, but not all of the time.
Vegan-ish.
But yeah, vegan-ish. I don't know. I'm sure there's a name for it, like pescatarian and all of that blooming malarkey. But who knows, right? But yeah. But I don't know how I got. But I always feel, and even now, there are good foods and bad. Cookie, bad food, right? Good food, apple. Salads, good foods. Bad food, chips, burgers, pizzas. All bad foods, right? So I still have lists that are good and bad. And what I have to then re-educate myself is to go, yeah, but occasionally bad foods, not too bad. Just don't binge on bad foods. Like, you know, have a couple of bits of chocolate, not a whole bloody bar, you know. But that's those elements. So I sit there and I mean, I don't know what you think, but I sit there and go, I don't know if I'll ever get over that food. It's not, and also it's like being addicted to food.
Yeah.
So it's not like where you can go, oh, I was a heroin addict and so I can, you know, I've given it all up, or I was an alcoholic and so I don't touch alcohol. Like you have to eat, right? If you don't eat, you don't survive, right? So it's, I mean, I don't know. What did you find?
I feel
this isn't about me. This is about you.
It's interesting because like, you know, this is such a complicated addiction, which is what you just were saying, where it's like, you can't throw out all the food in your house, but you can't go cold turkey with this one. Like you actually have to heal it. And I found for me that I really had to relearn was I had to just not put a negative or positive charge with any food. I really leaned into, and, you know, I was fortunate enough to be able to go to treatment and have therapists and like have help in this, and guidance. But it almost was like going into this mentality of like intuitive eating, where it's like all food's safe, all of it's safe, none of it's bad. You know, I try to follow my intuition about it. but I think we can create these very, very powerful stories surrounding a cookie. You know what I mean? And like that can be, that's what's damaging. The cookie itself is not bad. It's what we've placed upon it. It's the charge we put upon it. And then we are creating these stories, you know. I found that for me, something, again, these topics are so complicated, you know, but something that really, really helped me get out of it. And this is something I found on my own, kind of after I'd been in treatment, and I kind of had, you know, a few relapses here and there, and I was in therapy. But something that really helped me was I found meditation. And that was for me something where I finally found some space inside where I was like, oh, okay, it can be safe in here. It doesn't always have to be like going, or controlling. And it was a little bit more of like a breath that I found. And I had to slowly reprogram and relearn this story that I just believed forever, which was something is wrong with me. And that came through, you know, affirmations or meditations. And I would listen to a lot of some of those, like almost like what's the word I'm looking for? Like reprogramming your subconscious in a way. Meditations about like love, about loving myself. And I just really had to like shift this perspective I had of myself, where it was like, okay, what if this isn't good or bad? What if it just is? It's such a gray area, because even with treatment and recovery, it's not an overnight thing, unfortunately, you know. And it is this, it almost became a gradual way out of it, where I noticed the more that I would be kind to myself and would spend time taking a pause every day of just meditating. And I would just use one of these apps, you know, like an Insight Timer app, and you can search for anything. And it didn't even have to be about food or related to food. It was just like, okay, maybe today I want to do a meditation that has unicorns in it. I don't know. I'm just throwing something out there, but it's like, just anything to pause the chatter, because the chatter will keep you being a prisoner in your own mind.
And it is that internal voice, isn't it? It is that internal voice.
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
And it's not you. It's like the mean drill sergeant voice that's like calling you a piece of shit. Like that's not true. No. Like that's just this, I don't know, this old mean voice that you've learned, that's been informed by like maybe the mean things you've said to yourself or somebody else has said to you, or just whatever, wherever we picked it up from. But like, that's actually not really who you are. It's just that mean voice that can go like, ugh, oh no, you know, that's not the truth. And I think like starting to finally understand this concept that the thoughts in my head weren't me, I think that was something that was really useful too, because I never really heard that before growing up, that like, oh, my feelings and my thoughts aren't who I actually am. Like who I actually am is like underneath all that. Okay. Like something about that finally clicking. And this is still an ongoing journey, believe me. You know? Oh,
look, I agree
right?
with you.
As we said before, it feels like it's this constant, like ongoing dialogue where you have to say like, oh no, I'm choosing to listen to that nice, quiet voice, not the mean screaming voice. I think that started, but that shifting of my perspective of just like, okay, what if nothing's wrong with me? What if nothing is wrong with me? What if this just was manifested because of all of these things that lies I believed about myself? And that was useful or helpful. And I also think, what we're doing right now was helpful, like having true, honest, authentic, vulnerable conversations with people. And I feel really thankful for Shapeless, which is the film that I was the creator of and co-wrote, starred, and produced, that was about my struggle with bulimia, because in that container, I was surrounded by these incredible collaborators who I really had to communicate like these things I'd never spoken about in order to create this film.
Wow. That's what I was going to say, because this is like a personal journey for you. And I know with my situation, it's personal to me. And although I I don't have any issues talking about it. I feel as though people don't fully understand. I mean, I can talk to other people who have been through it and we sort of have that understanding. But like, this is you exposing yourself to other people as such, your most inner turmoils in a movie.
Yes.
Like, what got you to that? But what did you go? Where did you sit there and go, I know, I'm just going to go out there and like put me all over the screen, everything that I've gone through, you know? I mean, what made you do that?
I find a lot of catharsis and understanding and empathy through art. So when I was in treatment, which at this point was about 12 years ago, I had this like very small seed of an idea where I was, and I think the idea came from, first I went on a search of like, are there movies out there about this? Are there books out there about this? Like, who's talking about this? And nobody was really talking about it. I'm like,
I think the only movie I've ever seen is Karen Carpenter's story.
Right. So there were some, but I felt like they scratched the surface. Like I felt, or it would be like a lot of times eating disorders were joked about in movies and TV shows. I remember seeing some TV show when I was in high school where somebody was like, oh, how did she fit into that dress? It was something along those lines. And some dude was like, oh, because she has finger sandwiches for lunch and dinner, and like mimed and inducing vomiting. And I just remember my whole,
wow,
I just plummeted, you know, I was like, oh my God, like that's what people think about it. And at that point I wasn't discussing it at all. It was still a secret. And so that's what I was coming up against. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is the way it's being treated. And it's a shame. And it's not useful. It's not helpful. This is just, you know, so I almost felt like I was like searching for a movie that I needed. And so I had this little seed of an idea in treatment where I was like, man, I would love to like make a movie about kind of based on like what I went through, which was a singer who was losing her voice to bulimia, and like make a movie about like what it's really like somehow. But I remember even back then that mean voice was like, yeah, right. No one's going to watch a movie like that. Like, come on. Yeah, you know, as the voice, that mean voice does. But that was where it first started. And then the journey was like a very slow baby step journey to get to where we are now, being able to even talk about it. And I think it's something that I kept revisiting over the years where I was like, man, I really want to do that. And like little by little, I was also at this point a professional actor. So I was kind of like doing those things and writing a little shorts here and there and doing improv. And I was sort of like, whether I knew it or not, I was like baby stepping my way to Shapeless, the film we're talking about. And where Shapeless really, really began was after my daughter was born. My daughter was born. She was about 4 months old.
Wow.
And I remember I was holding her and I had one of those moments, you know, those mom moments where you're like, holy shit, it's all going so fast and the world's so big. And how am I going to teach them? How am I going to protect them? How am I going to help them? Like, oh my God, like she's only, you know, as you know, time goes by in a blink with these children. I just had this moment where I was like, how can I help her? Like, how can I communicate this to her? Like, how can I somehow create a space that's like a little safer for her to live in, a world that's a little bit safer where she feels like if something like this was going on with her, she could talk to me about it. And it wouldn't be big, huge, you know, strangely shameful thing that it felt like for us. And so that was kind of the impetus. It was like my daughter really was the big inspiration for that. And I ended up just finally writing a first draft down. I had taken like a screenwriting course a couple years ago, and I finally just wrote something down. It wasn't what it is now. It wasn't that. I knew it wasn't going to be that great, but I just was like, I got to get something on paper. And it ended up get the story, the concept, the character, like the bones as best as I could out. And that draft I sent to the director, Samantha Aldana, who ended up becoming the director. I sent it to her because I also felt this this connection to her where I knew her from the New Orleans film community, and I felt like she was an incredible director. She does these very surreal, kind of dark, magical films. And I knew I wanted something sort of surreal in it, but I wasn't quite sure what it was going to be, like something symbolic, you know? And so I sent it to her, and thankfully, like some piece in there she was interested in. And through that, that's where we started this development. And we started these big, big conversations that we've now colloquially called creative therapy, where we would just discuss, like, what was that like? What was that like? And I noticed the more I would share, and as we added collaborators, our incredible co-writer, Bryce Parsons Tweston, who just really came in, and the script really took off and flew from there. And my ex-husband, the father of my daughter, who was also very, curious and kind and open. And I noticed, like, as I would discuss things, sometimes with people who had never struggled with eating disorders, they would say something along the lines of, like, I've never struggled with an eating disorder, but I understand shame. Like, I understand how that can manifest in my own life in whatever ways it manifests. And I think it can show up in a lot of different ways, whether it be addiction or anxiety or depression, whatever it is. And then I would also talk to people who had experienced eating disorders. And it was almost like I could feel vulnerability healing this shame. Like, little by little, I was more and more comfortable to speak about it. And that was like something that was such a gift for me when I was able to go through this like pre-production process, and that I never anticipated. But that's why I think I feel that's why I know I feel so passionate about healing uncomfortable, like these uncomfortable conversations, which thankfully we feel comfortable talking about this now, but not a lot of people do. And I think that when people are sharing their stories and they are able to like share their experiences, whether they're really difficult experiences, it can be a really incredible guidepost for people who feel stuck, who feel like they can't communicate it. And so, to bringing it back around to like the why of Shapeless, I think for me, if I could simplify it, it was like, if I can help someone, like one other person, I want to try. And I want someone who struggles with an eating disorder to watch this movie and say, that's what it feels like. Because it's so fucking hard to describe. It is so hard to communicate verbally. And so I think that film can really transport you into a world, into an experience, and it can be this little portal of empathy where you can really be there and you can feel seen or understood. And then for people on the outside, I hoped the same thing, a portal into this world of someone who struggles to say, that's what it's like. Like, I had no idea. And so if it could create this dialogue, that's what I was hopeful for. That's initially what kind of kept me going.
Yeah. And you're right. You're even, like you said to me, how did you get yourself out of it? And I'm like, well, I don't really know, but like, it's also about trying to describe you in that situation as well. It's very hard. Like, I can remember, I mean, I was like, well, you were a teenager, I was a teenager, right? And the thing is, like, as a teenager, you're so outwardly focusing on like what everything else is going on in the world. So like, when this was all happening to me, it was like blooming Kate Moss and waifs and all of this stuff, right? And I'm like, there is no hope in hell's chance I was ever going to be waif-like, right? I'm curvy, right? I have hips, I have a small waist, I have hips, I have a bust. I ain't going to be like a boy, right? And I'll never forget, Levi 501's not fitting me because I'm not like a boy shape. I'm curvy, right? Yeah. That ain't no good. Right. They fit my hips, they don't fit my waist. There's so much gather around my waist. It's, but it's like nuts, right? Yeah, Levi 501s were the big thing then. And yeah, as a teenager, it's just.
Yeah, that was like what we were packaged. I mean, like, it was the low waist jeans for me. It was like, they didn't fit, and I just had all these And of course, that's what girls are talking about when you're a teenager. Everybody's talking about their this, their body, their diet, their this, their that. And I would just be listening and then internalizing it. And yes, you nailed it on the head. You are so externally focused, especially as a teenager, or at least I was. And I think that's something that, like, when I did finally find meditation, and this was only like 5 years ago, really, is when I started to, it was like I started to shine that light inward instead of outward as much. Again, this is an ongoing journey. But it started to like loosen that grip I think I had. Because I feel like before I was white knuckling to just be like, okay, I'm not going to binge. I'm not going to purge. I'm not going to restrict. I'm going to eat. And I'm white knuckling. I'm thinking my way through this. It was always like I was thinking, it was in my mind. And it was like almost bringing it back to my heart is the best way I can describe it, is like where I found some real healing.
And what was your day? So like, well, I know what my day would be getting up and thinking about food.
Yeah.
100% of the day. So I'd like get up and go, right, but I'm not going to eat breakfast. I would like plan it out, right? I'm not going to eat breakfast, right? Because that'll be good. And then I'll have an apple for lunch or whatever. And you just like, but then thinking about food and I don't know. And I don't know what normal people think about in a day. Do you know what I mean? Like at that time, I mean, obviously I do now, but like at that time it was 100%. Like, what was your day like?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The same. It was always about food. And it was like, how can and I think sometimes it would be very planned. Like, okay, like I'm going to try to skip breakfast. I'm going to try to like eat this little thing for lunch and like not have to, blah, blah, blah. But then I think too, it was, I just was always thinking about it. I was always planning about it. I was always like, then if I wasn't thinking about it, I was shaming myself about it. So it was like, it was this constant spiral of being stuck in your mind all the time, never being present. It was almost like paranoia is the best way I could describe it.
Yeah. And like, were you at home at this time? Were you like, when I first, so I'm assuming you,
when I first, yes. Yeah. When I first developed, bulimia.
Yeah.
You're asking. Yes. So I was living at home.
So did your parents find out at all? I mean, mine did, but like I wasn't doing anything that they thought I was doing as such. Right. But like, did yours find out?
Yes. My mom, I think I ended up getting like caught purging. And I remember feeling, and I don't think my mom intended me to feel this way, but I remember feeling like I was in trouble. Like I remember feeling like, oh shit, I'm doing something wrong. This is bad. Oh, fuck. And so again, the shame just like dug deeper.
Oh, my parents sent my brother to bed and I then sat me down in the lounge. I'll never forget it. And I like sat there and went, oh, this is heavy shit then, because
oh shit.
Because my brother's not here and I've got both of them sitting here and they don't look like they know how to talk to me. So I'm like, far out. Right? Where am I going?
Which now as parents, like I can like, now I try to like put myself in my mother's shoes and I'm like, oh my God, I can only imagine like,
yes,
how they were trying to handle that, because I don't know what's hard. Like, I truly don't know what's harder, obviously, being the one struggling with the mental illness or being the one on the outside loving that person, not knowing how to help. Like they're both like just difficult places to be. And so I did go to therapy back then, but I just always had this mentality that it was wrong. I was in trouble and I had to get out of there. Like, I think I still had this like perfectionistic tendency there where I was just like, okay, as long as it looks like I'm not in therapy anymore. But so I didn't really treat therapy the way I should have treated it. Right. I just kind of was like,
me too.
Right.
Mum took me to therapy. We did this like mother and daughter massage session, which I found really bizarre. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure my mum didn't, because like I sit there and think about my son and I love hugs and cuddles from him. But as a teenager, you're going, I don't want to, why am I doing it? Like, I don't want to do this. And although we did, and it was okay and it was fine. But like, and I was very much emotionally cut off. Like, were you like, well, I'm in control of my emotions. I'm cool. I'm okay. This is good. Were you like, did you push all of your emotions down?
Yes. Oh, very much so. I think that's where this eating disorder comes from. I think it really comes from first pushing all your emotions down, like literally just not feeling safe in expressing your feelings. And this is, again, an ongoing journey for me.
Yes.
In trying to retrain myself to be like, oh no, all feelings are safe. This is all right. We're okay. But it's complicated because it comes again from this deep programming or belief from a long time ago. Because we can consciously sit here and say like, yes, it is safe to feel our feelings. And then when they're actually happening, that's a whole other story.
What would you say if there were parents listening to this that had a hint that their kids might be doing this? What would you say to them? Because like my mum, I know my mum would have gone through the yellow pages because there was no Google at that time, right? She would have flicked through Google. She would have flicked through Google. She would have flicked through the yellow pages and phoned everyone she could, right? I mean, at least there's Google and there's lots more information. I can't believe that was actually in my mouth then. At least there's Google. But anyway, like you can search and research things. But what would you say, having dealt with the eating disorder, what would you say to parents who may feel as though maybe they're going through it or might be on that journey trajectory?
This is a difficult question, and I'm really glad you asked.
Sorry.
it. No, I'm really glad you asked it. It's a difficult question because I don't think there's one answer. I think that one thing I'll just say is like a caveat, or I don't know if that's the right term right there, but I'll just say that when it comes to healing and when it comes to recovering, I really think the individual has to want to do it. And I'm not sure if I was really ready to do it back when I was a teenager until I got a little older and I really started shifting my perspective. However, I'll just say that you can't.
No, but I agree with you.
Right,
I completely agree with you.
Right? You can't force someone to get better. And so that's why I think it's so complicated, because especially these young kids, you're still living at home with your parents. You're feeling like they're making you do something, perhaps. So it's delicate, like it's a delicate balance. And I think the best way I could say maybe for a parent who is maybe met with something so difficult like this is to, as best you can, be as safe as you can, and say, I love you. Nothing is wrong with you. A lot of people deal with this. This is something that we can help. We can help find. We can talk to, if you're not comfortable talking with us, like, let's get somebody you are like a therapist. I think finding therapists or like finding someone like that is really useful. Someone who can be an external sounding board for them is really helpful. And just almost approaching it like a journey that we're going to take together and being honest. I'm scared. I love you. How can I, as best you can, how can I help? I think that now we have a lot more resources, which is incredible. I was just on the phone or on a Zoom earlier with this woman for this company called Juniver. And it's incredible because this woman, she had struggled with bulimia and she's kind of gone out to like create a platform that she wished she had. And it's more of this on demand, like an online platform where it's like in the middle of the urge, like you can receive help like right then and there.
Wow.
And so I think that there are these resources, but I think it is difficult when it's these teenagers, again, because they're still figuring it all out. But I think as best as you can, create the safest space you can of nothing is wrong. Like none of these, like you shouldn't be doing that. Why are you doing that? What's wrong with you? Like those types of messaging, and stay away from this. Please do. Because whether it comes across or not, that person's feeling a lot of shame.
Yeah.
And
look, Freddie, I have to say, it's not just women as well. I know you and me are a woman, and a lot of people we've talked about are women. And I suppose it's maybe because that's our section of like people who we talked about with this. But like Freddie Flintock, who's a fantastic, awesome English cricketer who's a TV presenter in the UK and stuff like that, he came out and said, hey, I've been suffering from this for years. For absolute years, because he was called fat in the press, similar situation to me being called fat in a pub, but I suppose he was a bit more on the actual global network as such. And he just couldn't deal with it. He was like, right, sod this. I'm going to not be called fat in the press. And he got, that's, and I sort of sit there and go, it's a similar situation to me, but I was called fat in a pub, but it's just that not being good enough. It's sort of like,
right. Yeah. It can be anything. It can be
sort of that like, so if I'm thin, my life's going to change everything. I'll be good enough then. If I'm thin, I'll be good enough. The press will leave me alone, et cetera. I'll be successful, but that's not really how it works, people.
No, it's not true. And I'm so glad you said that, because again, it's not about the food, right? It's not about, yes. And those comments are difficult, and it can be anything. I think I remember some girl in like 8th grade saying my jeans were too tight. Like I needed different jeans. And I just remember I took that on and was like, I must be too fat. You know what I mean? I must have grown out of my jeans or whatever. And I think with like going back to the parent question, I think that like hopefully exposing children to like the representation of people like you're mentioning, Freddie Flintock and us or whoever is talking about it. And because what I hope is like that sort of level of like seeing it and hearing other people talk about it and saying like, oh, okay. It's almost like normalizing it in a way where then it becomes less scary, or at least hopefully becomes a little less scary to talk about, because I think that can be a source of big healing, is like being able to communicate it with hopefully a therapist or someone that can be trained to help in this exact place.
And I think we've got to stop saying it's talking about thin and fat and all of this malarkey, right? It's about talking about healthy body, right? So it's having a healthy body, which doesn't necessarily mean to say that you're like stick thin and like, because there is no way this body is ever going to be stick thin. And I've always, but it's healthy. It's having a healthy attitude to food, healthy attitude to your body. Yes. I'm curvy. I should embrace that and go, wow, curvy figures are like, yeah, exactly. Curvy figures are great. Big boobs, big bum, small waist, happy days. Kim Kardashian's gone a long way on all of that. What can I say, right? But, those sort of things. Madonna had a butt implant because she wanted a bigger ass. I've got one and had one for life.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like,
you're beautiful.
Do you know what I mean? Exactly. And I go, Madonna, why did you get a butt implant, lady? Like, just embrace who you are.
It's like body dysmorphia is strong. It's complicated. We will see what we want to see and we won't see anything else. And
I know, it's shit, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think you're exactly right. I think there has been a lot of positive changes in this exact space with body awareness, with body positivity, with acceptance, but acceptance is tough. It's difficult. But again, it goes back. If we could peel all these layers away, I really think it goes back to this, well, at least in my experience, this kernel of a feeling that I never felt good enough. Like it was almost like a pendulum swing between like, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, or I'm too much. Like I never, and again, and whose expectation? These were just my own expectations I wasn't measuring up to, which again, that is why this is so freaking complicated and complex, because it's all inside. It's all these, yes, maybe you internalize things you've heard, but again.
And do you know what? It's not things like, it's not things like upbringing either. It's like how you were impacted at school, like peer pressure and things like that. So not being picked for a team, or not, having a teacher say something at school that makes you feel stupid in a class, or whatever. It's those sort of things. So we have to be really careful. All of us do, really careful about how we're influencing and affecting our kids, I suppose, to a certain extent. But I don't want to put extra pressure on everyone, because look, at the end of the day, we're human, right? That's why I called this podcast what I did. But yeah, look, we could go down such an avenue. And I know I've only got you for an hour. So look, where can people, one, see the movie, two, if they want to contact you, where can they contact you?
Yes. So if you want to follow me, you can go to Instagram. You can follow my, it's just my name, at Kelly Murtagh. You can also follow at Shapeless the film. As far as watching the movie, if you are in Australia, you can watch it on Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Sky Store, Virgin Media, I believe. The UK, you can watch it on all of those, and I think Rakuten TV as well. And this is also available in New Zealand, same platforms. If you're in the US, you can stream it on Tubi, and you can watch it on Amazon Prime and Apple TV as well. I also have a children's book out. It's about New Orleans. If you like New Orleans,
that's right.
You can find it on
the Zoo Krewe,
spelled Krewe. It's for about kids ages 0 to 5. That's on barnesandnoble.com and amazon.com. And something I will say, just one, like, about our kids, I totally agree. I think it's starting younger than you would imagine. Like, that's something that I have I've had a lot of conversations with people about, like, wow, I know someone who has a 9-year-old with an eating disorder, 10, and I'm like, it's younger than you imagine. And it's coming from not because we're not talking about food, or we are talking about food. It's about what we talked about earlier, about feelings, about not feeling good enough, about feeling out of control. So, like, the tools, how can we get tools into young kids' hands about feeling safe in their body, in their feelings, and feeling safe in who they are, feeling safe in their individuality, feeling like they are enough, like they aren't too much. Like, and I think that can come with, I think art can be helpful. I think books can be helpful. I think breath can be helpful. Meditating can be helpful. But I think it's like, if we can look as far back as we can to, like, where the roots of these things are getting implanted, and how we can, like, really create some safe spaces for our children who don't feel safe in their feelings and safe. And obviously this is complicated. I don't have all the answers, but I think it's something to consider,
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And look, at the end of the day, we're all like, this is single parents podcast, but, like, we're all parents, right? Whether you're a single parent or you're in a standard nucleus family, whatever you would like to call it. I don't know. Maybe we should call it something different. But at the end of the day, we're human, okay? So you can fuck up a few times, right? But it's about what you do consistently across the whole piece. So it's about not punishing yourself and doing the mummy guilt because said X, Y, and Z. It's about being aware of that and going, okay, I said X, Y, and Z. Maybe I shouldn't be doing that. And learning and trying to adapt and develop your parenting style. So that you're putting a positive turn on everything. I mean, God, in this day and age, parents, Jesus, it's like your child can be trans, gay, fluid, like they have issues with their body, whether they're male or female. My son went to school with his nails painted the other day and he got bullied and all of this stuff. I mean, I know. But, like, I said to him, dude, Post Malone, Machine Gun Kelly, Youngblood, all have their nails pasted, buddy. They're all rock stars now, right? Look at who would have teased them at school, right? So
I know.
tell the bullies to bugger off, right? They don't know nothing. Deal with it,
Don't know
right?
nothing.
But
you're right. They just want to be as free as he is. You know what I mean? They're just projecting. But you're right.
Well, they have issues. That's the thing. They've got issues that they're dealing with, and they're wanting to make you feel bad, so it makes them feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
And the thing is, buddy, it's life, but we need to stop life happening.
Don't
like
we?
that.
Yeah, because that continues on. I mean, that's why we have the issues we do, because people are just projecting their pain onto others, And I think something you mentioned too, it's like being reflective as a parent, and then being honest with your kid, being like, you know what, when I said that thing, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I know it came across this way. This is, you know what I mean? And just trying to find that, I guess, compassion for yourself, but then the willingness to say, like, I'm not always right. I'm not always doing it right. I'm not always definitely not perfect all the time, Which
is good, because it makes you say, hey, nobody's perfect, all right? So then we get away from the thing that you and I were when we were teenagers. Oh, we have to be perfect. We have to be X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
When we don't. We just have to be me. We have to be us.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So look, one final question quickly while I've got you. What book would you recommend for my listeners, and why?
Oh, I love this question. So on the topic of all that we've discussed, I might say two. One, if you're interested in learning more about eating disorders or anything like that, Portia de Rossi, Ellen DeGeneres' wife, wrote an incredible memoir called Unbearable Lightness. And it goes into the depths of her struggle with anorexia. And I think that, again, it's what we were talking about earlier, having someone lay it out there with their own experience of like what they went through can be really healing. It can be really helpful. Be like, oh, wow, somebody's talking about this, reading or writing about this. And then another book that really helped me, it's called The Empath's Survival Guide. If you're someone who resonated with what I was saying about like big feelings and sensitive and feeling overstimulated and just feeling all of those feelings, it's really helpful. And there's a whole chapter about people who are highly sensitive or sensitive and addiction, and in particular eating disorders, which I found so healing and fascinating. That book, it's by Judith Orloff, The Empath's Survival Guide. And something she talked about is like people who are highly sensitive a lot of times have these eating disorders that come up young, because you feel overstimulated. You're not quite sure what to do with all your feelings, all this energy. You don't really know where it's coming from, where it's going. And so you kind of turn to this way of controlling through food, because that's an access point when you're young. Maybe you don't have access to like these other addictions or whatnot. But I found a lot. I thought that book was really, really helpful for me too.
Wow. No, that's cool. That's cool. I've got such a massive list of all these people who are recommending books that I interview.
I know.
It's great. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I nearly need to get my ass into gear and read them, but it's all good. Look, Kelly, thank you so much for your time today. It's been such a pleasure talking to you and connecting. And look, thank you. All the best with the movie. I've seen the trailer and I think it is awesome. It is so good. So, wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Keep in touch.
Yes, I wish you all the best. Thank you for this conversation and your vulnerability. You rock. Let's stay in touch for sure.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast and you would like to hear more, please hit subscribe wherever you like to hear podcasts. If you would like to support us further, share this episode with your friends and family. And finally, drop us a review on iTunes, as I'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, and ideas. It all helps me to understand and produce awesome content you want to hear just like this. If you want to check out our past episodes, write to us, appear on the podcast, or for links, resources, and show notes, go to our website, www.strongsingleandhuman.com. We are also on all the usual social media platforms, Insta, Facey and Twitter. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope to see you back here again soon. Be kind to yourself, and remember, no one is perfect. We're all just putting one foot in front of the other and doing our best. I'm Claire Martin, and you've been listening to the Strong, Single and Human podcast.